If I had one thing to tell my children that I've learned and have started to apply is constraint theory.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's Jeff Heilman project. Today we're going to talk about something pretty cool. It's called the mojo. It's like, what do you do how do you stay motivated, Jeff, when your things aren't clicking? Like, let's be real. Things don't always click. We're not always going to sink that putt or make that basket.
That's a great question. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody. I've been thinking about this a ton over the last couple of months because what I found is that my motivation is pretty much not almost all the time. I don't ever feel like going to the gym. I don't ever feel like going to work. I don't really like my job, my businesses, lifting weights, any other things that I have to do most of the time. I feel better when I've done them, but the motivation is fleeting. So a couple of things. First, you look at time of day. Daniel Pink talked about the book When, and it talked about
WHEN or WIN?
WHEN.
Okay.
And he talked about effectively that judges that come back from lunch send people to jail like 3 times more often than judges
Interesting.
before they go to lunch. So like if I've got calls with the IRS, the franchise tax board to talk about tax stuff, or if I've got tough meetings with the manager or something, I always want those meetings to be early in the morning when everybody's got their energy. And I literally have my calendar booked. I will not take meetings that start after 10 a.m. in the morning for the most part. So part of it is we have a motivation scale that drops from the time you wake up or whenever your peak time is. For Picasso, it was 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. And he would work from 8 o'clock at night until 3 in the morning and then go to bed and sleep from 3 in the morning till 11. So his peak energy period was at night. My peak energy period is from about 4 in the morning until about 10:30. And then I just crash and I'm worthless. So I can do a whole lot of work between 4:30 and 10 in the morning. And then I just don't want to do anything. So part of it is understanding when. Part of it is understanding glycemic index and blood work and all those things. Also understanding fitness. But what I would say, the biggest 2 things that I've been working on with regard to motivation recently, number one is constraint theory in order to overcome procrastination. Procrastination is basically dealing with trauma, which in most cases is just a sense of overwhelm. You've got so many things that you want to do. And constraint theory deals with aligning your activity with what your highest possible values are. And then the second thing is standard operating procedures and Kanban or Kanban, which is taking those highest level things that you're doing and then breaking them into bite-sized pieces from a regular, repeated structure so that you could say, okay, my goal is to get a meal. And the biggest constraint is I need food, ingredients, and a recipe. And my current state is I'm hungry. And then you'd go and say, okay, to get food, ideas, and a recipe, I could do ChatGPT for ideas, and I could do a pen and paper and then go get my grocery list. So I could say, okay, ChatGPT gave me the ideas. That's number one. Number 2 constraint would be to actually write down a list of ingredients and go to the store and buy them. So you would say, number 1, go to ChatGPT. Number 2, come up with the list. Number 3, write down the ingredients. Number 4, get in the car. Number 5, go to the store. Number 6, get a cart. Number 7, and you literally break it down into bite-sized pieces, because as your probability of success of doing a small task increases, your motivation to do that increases as well. So I would say the 2 biggest things are constraint theory in order to align the biggest blocker for you getting what it is that you want, obviously becomes the highest prioritized task, and then taking that constraint theory and breaking it down to do a checklist or a standard operating procedure so that you don't bleed out in your dopamine strands as you're constantly being challenged to shift context between one task or the next.
And I think that the things that I do are probably similar. I just don't have the vocabulary necessarily to describe them in such a way. But I definitely have 2 ways of remaining motivated. And one is solid imagery. I have to have a solid imagery of what I'm doing and where I'm going. So,
Yeah.
for example, I wake up at 4 o'clock every single morning, but it goes beyond just setting the alarm, I actually literally have to see where am I going to. Like if my alarm's going to go off at 4:00 in the morning, my routine is to go to the bathroom. So I know exactly that I'm going to go to the bathroom and I have to have my bathrobe hanging. And then I have to go from the bathroom to my desk and I need to sit at my desk. So it's less about just the alarm going off and then, oh, it'd be such a good goal to just wake up early every day. I need to know exactly what am I going to be doing. So there needs to be solid imagery in order for me to stay motivated. I need to see myself sitting at my desk at 4:00 in the morning. I need to see myself opening up my book and my study material. I need to actually spend quality time visualizing the task that is not motivating, the thing that I do not want to do. But as long as I take the time to visualize and go beyond just setting the alarm and telling myself I got to do something, to where am I going to be sitting? What am I going to be wearing? I actually sat down and I took like a whole list of, okay, my goals. My goal is to wake up at 4:00 every morning. What am I going to need? Actually wrote down a list of everything that I needed to wake up at 4:00 in the morning. I need a place to sit. I need my book. I need my pen. I need my hair tie. I need my pajamas. I need my bathrobe. And then as long as I had a clear visual picture and solid imagery, that motivate actually became a motivating force to be like, I have to fit this picture. This picture's got to manifest and materialize. Otherwise, I'm going to explode, because I spent so much time actually imagining what it was going to look like to wake up at 4:00 in the morning, where I'd be sitting, that it became exciting. That's like, I've got my little coffee warmer, my little heat pad on my desk so that I can go and make my coffee in the Keurig and then I can heat it up on the desk. And so there's all this time that I've spent visualizing and imagining this thing that I don't want to do getting done successfully, that it just goes beyond just setting the alarm and doing it. So that is the way that I am able to stay motivated, even though it's something that I don't want to be doing, is through solid imagery. The second thing that I do is I make sure, and I've talked about it so many times, but the importance of rewardivation. It's motivation, but backed with a reward. I've got to have consistent dopamine hits throughout the entire process of doing something that I don't want to do. If I do not want to clean my house, I will go to Target. I will buy a candle. Something new. I will put it on the coffee table. I will refuse and discipline myself not to light it until that living room is clean, as a reward for having cleaned the space.
Yeah.
So there's always reward. We file our own taxes. I will always go to the grocery store, get stuff for a charcuterie board so that we can, while we're filing taxes and highlighting and doing everything, we've got little crackers and we've got dip and we've got, olives, all of our little favorite things, in order to make this difficult task motivating and become something to actually go to looking forward to. A perfect example of that, because we do our financial budget every 2 weeks, when we started getting to the point to where we would go out to breakfast on the day that we were going to do the budget, because we're sandwiching something that's kind of uncomfortable, like having to look at all the numbers and do this thing, and it's such a mundane task, but being able to do it over waffles and whipped cream. So being able to trick our minds and do some psych tricks in order to get those dopamine hits and make sure that they're sprinkled throughout the task.
So let's take a look at what you're doing right there: solid imagery and then rewardivation. So the rewardivation has to do with dopamine and the expectation
Absolutely.
of dopamine, right?
Absolutely.
And the solid imagery has to do with clarity of like what the steps are in order to do something. And I've seen you take very complex projects and manage them, but you ask a lot of questions on the front end so that you can get a really good,
solid
clear picture. So I think what we can agree to is that it's dopamine.
Absolutely.
Motivation is a function of dopamine, but you can trick yourself into doing the things you don't want to do in order to get those dopamine fixes. And Huberman does tons of work. Andrew Huberman down the street here at Stanford does a ton of work on that. But effectively, what we know about dopamine, what we know about motivation is that it's fleeting. And we need to be able to avoid context shifting, which is why when I think about context shifting, I think about a bookmark. You and I have a daily Bible study.
Hmm.
In that daily Bible study, we've done, I don't know, 4 or 5 books in the last year, but we have a bookmark. And that bookmark allows us to pick right back up where we left off the day before with our book. And it's simple, it's easy. Well, a bookmark in a project, since your project is not going to be pages in a book that's bound, your project is going to be a series of tasks. And the bookmark would effectively be either a marker of where you were in a checklist if you're talking linear, or in my case, I invented, because I couldn't find a way to get the system to work the way I wanted it to. I had to come up with one. I actually invented a Kanban checklist, a way of having disparate tasks in any particular order, dealing in constraint theory, and breaking each of them down into 4 categories of or dispositions of completion, so I can look at one of my Kanban boards and in 2 seconds I know exactly what the next thing is that I need to do. I can pick right back up where I left off. I can leave a task unfinished, which normally I try to work until a task is finished, but I can't necessarily work until a 2-week project is done and not take any distractions. I have to be flexible throughout the day. But I can take a task, finish the task, take an interruption from somebody, and then get right back to where I was going in that task and recognize that that task has already had a decision made against it, that it is the single most important thing I could be doing against the project that is the biggest constraint. And so there's zero pushback from a dopamine perspective. There's zero bleed out from a context shift perspective. And I can continue to run at a very, very high level against these standard operating procedures and Kanban boards until the job is done. The biggest thing that I would say is start studying constraint theory. If you look at constraint theory, it solves it. If I had one thing to tell my children that I've learned and have started to apply recently that's really been able to work, is constraint theory. Because what happens is we procrastinate on stuff. Let's do it this way. Let's say that we draw a T on our paper and we have husband on one side and wife on the other. Let's say that the husband's priority is make sure he has enough money in order to pay the bills. Now, this is our family. Enough money to pay the bills, enough job credit in order to keep the money coming in, enough insurance to protect against the loss of money or the loss of job from a cash flow perspective. Next priority after that is going to be his own physical health. Next after that is going to be order and structure, making sure that details and bills get paid. Next structure after that is going to be whatever side hustle or business that you've got going. Next after that is going to be legal and tax to make sure that the government isn't going in and getting too much, right? Where does family and kids lie in there? Not even on the radar, because these things are survival for a dad who's, trying to put food on the table for 9 people. Now, if we move over to the wife, and in this case, you, number 1 is going to be children's safety. Number 2 is going to be children's education. Number 3 is going to be children's extracurricular activities. Number 4 is going to be children's clothes, comfort, and things that they want and ask her for on a regular basis, including but not limited to, can I have the keys to the Jeep, or can we do a Starbucks run? So it's not that our values are not aligned, it's that our focus points are different. So when I say to Jessica, hey, you're going over budget, or I don't want you to go over budget, she's saying, yeah, but the kids need stuff. She is not wrong, or I am not right. We're simply trying to align values to say, hey, the kids need stuff and we have money to spend, or the kids need stuff and we don't have money to spend, and we have to reconcile these things. So if I'm doing things that are taking care of job number 1, which is money, job number 2, which is job number 3, which is taxes, etc., I'm working in consistency with what is the highest, most important thing. And if she's pushing on me saying the kids need stuff for food, the kids need stuff for school, the kids need stuff for clothing, she's also acting in consistency with those values. And it's not one value or the other value is more important. It's that's the negotiation between it. Well, guess what? Our subconscious mind has that same negotiation that it has to do between stuff people are asking us for at work, stuff people are asking for at home, stuff that our friends want to go out and get a drink or pizza or whatever. All of these things are constantly being negotiated. And where we start to shut down from a motivation standpoint is where we say, I want to go out and play with my friends because it feels good, but I also need to take care of the money and the budgets. So until you get to the point where your budget is on autopilot as a standard operating procedure, you're always going to feel guilty because you can't go out with your friends, or guilty because you do and you can't afford it. But once you start standardizing taking care of money, then you standardize taking care of your job, then you standardize taking care of your family. Now, with the extra time that you've got left for your friends, if those are the order of your values, now when you go out with your friends, you have a great time. You don't think about it. You're not stressed because you are doing something that's in line with your values, and the rest of your basic needs have been taken care of. Where we start to get into trouble is where we're going out drinking, going out partying, going out not paying our bills, going out not showing up for work. And then we want the things that work will pay for, but we're not doing the things that work requires for us to do in order to have certainty in our jobs and be predictable. So that's where motivation really comes to understanding what are our values, what are our priorities, and the fastest way to get to that is to look at constraint theory and say, where am I today? You're worth 100 grand, let's say. Where do I want to be tomorrow? I want to be worth $1 million. All right, what's the biggest constraint for that? Well, the biggest constraint is I'm not making more money than I spend fast enough to get to that $1 million goal by 10 years from now, let's say, for somebody's goal. So then you start saying, okay, well, if the biggest constraint is I'm not making enough money, then we make that the new goal. So we need to make more money. All right, well, if I'm not making enough money and I want to make more money, what's the biggest constraint for that? The biggest constraint for the money that you're making is going to be leverage. How much leverage, right? If we all have 168 hours a week, so then you say, okay, my new goal is to get more leverage. Today I don't have leverage. I want leverage in the future. What's the biggest constraint to getting leverage? And so on. And if you work down that list, eventually you're going to come up with an answer of something that you could do, something where you have clarity, something that is simple enough to take action toward, that would actually move the needle toward you getting the leveraged income that you need in order to make more money to hit your financial goals. And when we just break it down and make it super simple, goal on the right, current state on the left, constraint in the middle, rinse and repeat all the way down and break that down, you'll be able to align your daily activity with the things that you most value according to your goals, and your procrastination will stop.
And with that, we thank you guys for tuning in to the Jeff Heilman Project, and we are excited to hear from you. So leave in the comments what you're working on and what is constraining you, and maybe we can hash it out and see if we can't help you anymore with your goals.
Thanks for being with us on the Jeff Heilman Project, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
See you next week.